Topic number 2. Actually, I'm going backwards. That was 5. I'm going back to 4. Olympic thoughts. It's a special time. It's after the Olympics. Everyone thinks swimming is great right now. We are. TV ratings were amazing. Our sport's getting recognition we never got before. It will slide off a little bit as we go through 4 years. It seems not as much as it used to be, but it's a great time for our sport. It's special. Olympics. Olympic thoughts. I was extremely fortunate to have this opportunity. I thank everyone that supported it. I thank everyone in the room because there's amazing. It just amazed me at how many people asked what they could do to help. It was good. It was also a lot of pressure. I didn't realize till after it was over how much pressure it was. It affects you because you're carrying a big burden. The last thing you want to do when you're working with someone else's athletes, is mess them up. So it's something that you think about a lot. What I expected, I didn't know what to expect. I've never been a head Olympic coach. I've been on the staff before, way different. When you're on staff, one of the best things is being an assistant coach on staff. Someone else has all the pressure. You get to make decisions. You get to contribute, and when it's made, you just kind of move forward. And we had a tremendous staff. They all were tremendous, and that's why we're successful. But I didn't know what to expect. I knew the Chinese were going to be good. I knew that the Australians, if you looked at their trials, they should have been tremendous. The Brits were swimming at home. They've invested a tremendous amount of money in swimming. I would suggest all of it. Money is not what it's about. It's love of sport. The amount of money that some of those other countries invest in the sport is unbelievable. And sometimes they're not getting the payoff in their dollar. But looking at those things, and especially looking at the men's side, but Terry and I worked very closely with both sides. We felt that was important. The staff do that. Those were some big challenges. And the last thing I wanted to do is for the U.S. team not to be good on my watch. In those challenges, we had some, on the men's side, we had a lot of old guys. I've said for years that team was getting a little long a tooth, and I think it still is. And the question was whether they could hang on and do it again. There was a question whether we were good enough in the freestyle events. It's the basis of the meet. It's the meat of the meat, the basic part of the meet, if you will. There was a question in our freestyle events. Our sprinters hadn't been especially good the last few years. Our distance freestyle looked weak. Our middle distance guys weren't good at the trials at all. My fault. But we were in a pretty unique dynamic, and the rest of the world is good in the freestyle. So I thought those were real challenges. On the women's side, the question was who was going to step up. We knew we had some young girls. They had some talent, but will they step up in the big stage? And Bill told you last night, the Olympics is a different stage. It will always be. It should be. That's why we're all here. Whether the youth would handle the pressure, I thought was a big question. Staff-wise, we had some questions staff-wise, because you always select U.S. staff late. But even more than that, transition year. Mark Schubert, one of the best leaders we ever had, transitioned to Frank Bush, who did a fantastic job. The difference in styles, certainly a difference in approach. I think looking at it expectation-wise, there's some questions about that. And then the real reality is the trials. It's very close. It was the closest it's ever been to the Olympics. The question is, is that going to work? Is there enough time to get the athletes ready for the two? And then on top of it, as we went through the year, we found that it's going to be bigger and bigger. Humongous meet. And I'm kind of a small meet guy a little bit. It worried me. I thought we might select the wrong team. So those were the expectations and thoughts going in. What actually happened? Well, the timing of our trials turned out to be perfect. I think we did some things that were really great. The large trials, it actually hardened them. We may have hurt a few athletes here and there. The first day was a little long. I think it might have hurt some of the athletes the second or third day. Maybe an athlete made the team and missed an event here and there because of it. But basically it hardened us. It made us really, really ready to go. So I think it was good. Didn't have a response. The athletes took everything in stride. They rallied, performed real well. Actually, leaving the trials, though, on paper, we were not very good. We had a lot of big holes, a lot of weaknesses. It still was a little questionable. When we got there, They raced great. The team was intense. It was close. You all know the results. I don't need to go through them. It was really interesting about the close trials. One of the Canadian coaches, as we left the trials, called Martin Wilby, and he said to Martin that we should be preparing for a 7-day meet. And we all know the Olympics was 8 days. And his philosophy was, well, your trials was so long that by the time you pack it all into, and you take the people out, the reality, this meet's going to be a lot shorter for you. It's only a 7-day meet. It's not an 8-day meet with a whole lot of people. So I think there was an expectation across the world. Got a little feel the first few days of the meet in the deck that, maybe we weren't as good. The Australians were pretty confident. But we did a tremendous job. I'm not going to go over the results. I think it's a tribute to the athletes. Fantastic group of athletes, fantastic coach. Frank Bush and the staff had everything ready to go. Frank did a tremendous job keeping the focus where it needed to be so that the coaches could working with the athletes. Logistics, all the travel things, they were fantastic. Housing was good. They're responsive to everything that we ask as coaches that we need to do. We usually got done. I'd like to take an opportunity to especially thank the staff that was working at the meet. On the women's side, Dave Salo, Steve Boltman, and Todd Schmitz did a tremendous job. Men's side, Bob Boltman, Eddie Reese, and David Marsh, all tremendous. Worked well together, gave great ideas, helped the athletes. Men and women's staffs crossed one another. And again, I would reemphasize, John Urbanchik was special. Jack Roach from United States Swimming did a lot of filling in as kind of assistant coach. And I would give special credit to the number of American coaches that come to the camp in Knoxville, show an interest in their athletes. You will never know how important that is to your athlete that they show up. Every once in a while they may act like they don't appreciate it. Believe me, they do. And as the pressure gets closer, it's really obvious and they speak up about it. The women obviously stepped up. Those young girls, Missy Franklin, Katie Ledecky, Elizabeth Beisel, Leah Neal, just to name a couple, they're really young, big futures. I would offer to you, if you're an age group coach out there and you sit and you listen to talks like this, you say, hey, this doesn't apply to me, what Bill Sweetnam said didn't apply to you. Remember, 4 years ago, someone was sitting where you were sitting, working with a little girl called Katie Ledecky. No one knew who she was. They had no idea. But someone planted a seed 4 years ago. That girl won. No one expected her to win. She's going to be one of the best ever. I mean, it's really amazing. So it's one of those things where it frustrates me to no end. Then when we talk in our sport about age group coaches and college coaches and senior coaches, we're all coaches. You do the same things. You use the same skills. Bill Sweetnam last night talked about what he did when he first started working with a team that was made up of all different things. And he missed it. 4-year-olds going 200 IM. I mean, pretty amazing stuff. And we're all coaches. Everyone does the same thing. We need to get away from all this stratification a little bit. We all do the same thing. Some of us are just luckier to work with the right athletes at times, or be in a dynamic where you get a chance to really work with those people. But anyway, the women stepped up. People worked with those young women. It's tremendous. And one of the best things I've ever seen in swimming were great people. Natalie Kaufman. I don't think it's any secret Natalie was disappointed she didn't swim as many events as she wanted. For her background, what she's done in the sport, for her to be going just as basically a relay alternate is where she was. She didn't even actually make the relay. I mean, that's a setback. She handled it like a champ. She took on the role of taking care of those younger girls. Tremendous. The leadership on the men's and women's side, we were lucky to have good coaches. We were lucky to have tremendous staff and great organization. We had fantastic leadership from those older athletes. Men's side, Peter Van der Kay, Brendan Hansen, Jason Lezak. Lezak very much like Natalie. And they handled it really well. Really class act people. The men, it's obvious that the old men couldn't perform. As consistently? Maybe not. Quite to the same levels as they would have wanted to? Maybe not. But enough that when all of them did it and put in the bits and pieces together, fantastic team. Just tremendous the way they got about it. And I think it's a real credit. And what is even more important, The maturity on the team allowed us to come back from disappointments. When you're working with your own teams, don't ever misunderstand that. It's really, really important because swimming never goes the way you want. Who would have ever thought that Michael Phelps was not going to medal at all in the 400 IM the first day? Comes back the next day, sets up the meet. In some ways, I talked with Michael about this. I think he wouldn't mind me sharing it. In some ways, it helped him. I think Michael enjoyed this Olympics more than any other because it was no longer about how many medals you're going to win or things, but just racing, which he's the best at. Just absolutely tremendous. He comes back from that. Brendan Hansen, a lot of pressure on Brendan. Medal in the breaststroke. We didn't really expect to get a medal in the breaststroke. We did. The rest of the world didn't expect us to. Brendan expected to, but it wasn't easy to do. Peter Vanderkay, trials was a little rocky. His trials was rocky because he wanted to medal in the 400 freestyle. He would like to have won, but we felt strongly we weren't going to do that. If we got ready for the trials, we had to keep something in the bank. His performances the first day were amazing because the first day was key for the team, and it's a good coaching thing to understand when you're looking at multiple day meets. The first day we come in, Michael wasn't quite as good, but Ryan was better than what he was at the trials. The 400 freestyle, on paper going into the meet, yeah, we've been good last year, but what we did in the trials compared to the rest of the world, we had no one swimming in the finals. We have two guys step up that day. They're both better than what they were. One of them medals. Dana Vollmer, really great prelim swim, great semifinal swim. Elizabeth Beisel goes faster in the trials. It set up the whole team. They all believed they, in fact, could go faster. It was a great first day, but again, it's a credit to the guys. A guy like Matt Griever stepping up. Ryan, when he wasn't good in relay, is a big-time disappointment. That guy's not used to losing at all. He didn't like it a bit. Come back and he swam the rest of the meet. We're pretty pleased with where we were. Could have been better? Possibly. But it was a team effort. Everyone was very unselfish. Tremendous group to work with. Challenges for the future after the Olympics. We want to keep in mind the good things and the stuff that we learned. We can make it work on a short time period between the two. It was probably tremendous for the athletes to have an opportunity to go home. The ones that were in Beijing team where they were gone for 50-plus days constantly said, boy, it's so much nicer when we aren't gone from home so long. We have an older community. It was good for them to get back, see their family, their friends, and also see personal coaches and get things started. I think it had a tremendous impact. I told you, I think I told you. We kept it relaxed, and it's just swimming. One of the reporters, did I say this already? But I went through this talk before one time. One of the reporters on one of the days, it was either Michael or Ryan when they hadn't swum especially well. It was after Michael's 400 IM or after Ryan's relay split, and you go back through the mixed zone at the Olympics, and the mixed zone is where the reporters get to you, and you stand there talking about 40 reporters, which is great for swimming. I hate it, but it's fantastic for the sport. There would have been 4 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But one of the reporters asked me, was he going to recover from it? I kind of looked at the guy. It's the Olympics. It's the biggest meet there is. They're well prepared. The team's swimming pretty well. I said, of course he is. It's just swimming. And it is just swimming. The reporter kind of stopped like it was some big deal. Bill Sweetenham said it last night. It's the Olympics. It's a big deal, but it was just swimming. You're trying to get a normal performance in an abnormal situation, so they have to be prepared. It takes lots of time to do that. We constantly need to remember we need to do it the American way. Everyone in the world is spending money, throwing money at swimming, putting small training groups together, really making a lot of big push, trying to put all their athletes in one place. Our biggest strength is all you people out there, the versatility, the different ways we can go about it, our ability to put a team together. Team is part of the American way. We understand team sports. The other countries in the world, they don't get it yet. It's an American clinic, so I can say those things. So. But we want to keep that in mind because there are lots of different ways to skin the cat, and they're all good, but none of them are easy, and they all take time. We have to keep that in mind. We shouldn't be overconfident. You take 2 or 3 athletes out of the meet in the men's side, and we're pretty average. And whether the young guys underneath will be able to step up, that's up to you folks over the next 4 years. How we work with those 11-year-olds. I feel very strongly about this. I've said it at committees. You have to quit telling your young boys they cannot compete with the older guys. It's wrong. Do not do it. They can. A year ago, the fastest 100 freestyle in the world was an Australian who swam better last year when he was younger than this year when he was older. He just turned 19 last year and he won the world championships. This is a men's event, a sprints event. Quit telling your young men they cannot compete. They can. The 19-year-old Japanese boy that was second or third in the 400 IM, well, no one told him he couldn't do it. We have to stop doing that. Is it harder for them to do it? Without a doubt. Is it uncomfortable for them to do it? Without a doubt. What did Bill Sweetman tell you last night about comfort levels? You make them uncomfortable. Have high expectations. And when they fall short, go back to work. Do not allow them to feel sorry for themselves, and do not allow their age to be a reason why they cannot do it. Michael Phelps was in the finals of the Olympics at 15 years old. Do not tell me they can't do it. We have to stop doing that. We have a generation of young people. We've gone 4 to 6 years now, and everyone makes excuses and keeps telling young men, hey, listen, you'll be good when these older guys are gone. That's what indirectly we're telling them. They can compete. It's hard to do. They have to be challenged. They need to work hard. And if they do, their time will come. But we certainly shouldn't be overconfident. We do not have the world. The Japanese swam very, very well. The French made big gains because they didn't like what they did 4 years ago. They went back and reevaluated. They made gains. We should reevaluate now, start now to make the changes we need so that we are continue to be good in 16 and 2020. Do not be overconfident. The Australians are not happy about where they're at. They will be better 4 years. I will guarantee it. I think it's key for us to always remember familiarity with the athletes is really important in that dynamic because it's an unfamiliar situation. You can only repeat it once every 4 years, so very few people really have experience. 4 years is long enough that even the experienced athletes get very nervous. So you need to have a staff that works with them, that is familiar with them. So I think one of the credits is all the people that I named earlier did such a tremendous job coaching. So many had been staffs the 3 years prior. They had relationships with those athletes and they know them well. That's the Olympics, folks. It was fantastic. Training older athletes to get better. That was one of the topics. I've thought about this for a couple years. I talked to Bob Bowman, and I asked Bob if I could use one of his earlier talks. I asked him about a year ago, and I don't know if he remembers, but if you want to hear swimming description and training and what you need to do, you don't need to listen to me. You need to go back and get Bob Bowman. He has a talk on capacity versus utilization. It is a tremendous synopsis. Whether you're an age group coach, whether you're working with age groupers, whether you're working with seniors, whether you're working with high school kids, college kids, 27-year-olds, it's a tremendous explanation of training in terms that are very understandable. Bob has a tremendous grasp for that. Excuse me. But in talking to him, my concern is when he gave it, he talked about training, and I think there's an aspect to it that people forget that is hurting our older athletes. I just told you to tell your younger kids could win, but older people are getting better. There's no two ways about it. Briefly, when he talks about capacity and utilization, he talks about capacity, and these are very broad terms. I don't do it justice, and I'm probably a little bit off, but it's my generalizations for the talk a little bit. Capacity is your endurance work. You might look at it as your volume work. It's the platform that gives you the ability to be great in the sport. In broad terms, it's aerobic. It's that long, boring swimming. I'm not real big in scientific terms. I just have a feel for what works for me, so my terms aren't very scientific, so I apologize to the scientific community. And excuse me for reading the notes, but I don't want to miss anything here. When Bob discusses, so it's volume, it's endurance. When he talks about utilization is more technique. It's more specific training. It's very relative to what you're doing. It's your adaptation. That's not correct. It's very specific. There's a tremendous community in the world that really focuses on specific training, and it's important. We have a very specific sport. As I look forward to the Olympics, I think you're going to see less people like Michael Phelps and Ryan Lochte.